What is up, my crew? This is the Nook Podcast. My name is Steven, and I am truly grateful that you are listening today. This episode will chronicle a twofold journey. The first element being about a man traveling from Kuwait to the United States for the very first time.
So I came here to the States in 1992. A lot of things were just new. I didn't understand people. In the South, oh my God, I couldn't understand anything they were saying.
And the second and even more important piece is that same man's journey from being born and raised as a Muslim to a radical encounter with Jesus that would change everything about his life.
And then when that happened, I was like, my world's turned upside down. Okay, so now we're moving into this creator God who, okay, sent a part of himself, who is his son. Like, it was so different trying to navigate all of those out.
My guest is Naeem Fazal, and he has such a remarkable story of life change at so many levels. To distill things down to mere culture shock in moving from one country to another would do this story a terrible disservice. This story has enough twists and turns that it could probably spark a Netflix series. You are in for a really good episode. So settle in for my conversation with Naeem Fazal. Knowing what I know, could you give me a little bit of that background of life growing up? I know that you come from a good-sized family, that you did grow up Muslim. Were you in Pakistan the whole time, or were there other points of living?
No. Yeah. So what's interesting, because officially and technically, I am Pakistani. So my parents are Pakistani. Both parents Pakistani, born and raised in Pakistan. But I was born in Kuwait in the Middle East. So my mom and dad, crazy enough, were first cousins back in the day. Even now, actually, in Pakistan, especially, cousins do get married. Arranged marriage is still a norm there. And so, yeah, my mom and dad were arranged marriage, first cousins, got married. My dad took off. Actually, he took off before he got married to try to figure out a better life. So he the rumor has it he basically lied about his on his birth certificate and got on a plane to go to Kuwait in the Middle East, got a visa there, started working there, and began just earning a living. I came back, married my mom, and was there in Pakistan for 2 weeks, took off. Oh, no, 2 months. Took off after that for about 2 years. My older brother, Mahmoud, I think you've met him. Mm-hmm. He was born in Pakistan. So he was born in Pakistan. And then my dad was gone for 2 years, crazy enough, 2 years. And then came back and then took Mahmoud and my mom to Kuwait with him. And then myself, my two sisters and my other brother, we were all born and then raised in Kuwait. Now, we're Pakistani because of our parents, and we have Pakistani culture in our blood. We speak the language, we do all the things, and we grew up as Pakistanis in an Arab context. But because religion in the Pakistanis and in Kuwaitis is very much central to the culture. There was a lot of similarities. And because, we grew up conservative Sunni Muslims. Yeah. It's a long answer for a short question.
Yeah, but it still gives really good context. Because, I think it's fair to say that that's all you ever knew, right?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you remember so intrinsically about your childhood and what it meant to grow up Muslim? Or was it just what you knew?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of, I guess, pride in a sense of being Muslim. So there was never a sense of, um, that I was ashamed of being identified as a Muslim. So if I were to compare it, my childhood to the present right now, and coming out of Islam and into Christianity, and then the expanse of Christianity, coming into from a Eastern culture to a Western one, and a Muslim culture to a Christian, you find that there are people who are born in a sense into a Christian home and had, they don't want to be identified as Christians, or sometimes there's this awkwardness, maybe even some shame, guilt, maybe this like, I don't want to be identified as a Christian, or a particular kind of Christian. That really did not exist growing up for me. It was very much we're Muslim, we like who we are, we are chosen people. That was the flip side of it. It was very much not the stories, the Jewish stories that, as Christians believe. They, when Muslims tell the same stories, but the Muslims are actually the chosen people there. So that's the switch or route. They tell the same stories with a different angle. And so we grew up with a sense of like pride, a sense of God is God, he's other than us. And a relationship with him is not really the language we would use. We would use a language of more like honoring him, living a life worthy of him. Part of that was doing a lot of the rituals that Muslims do. Like God was like really interested in are you going to, for example, do the 5 pillars of Islam, which is very much a part of Muslim life. So that's what I kind of grew up with.
Okay. I realized that the story changed quite a bit once Mahmoud came to the U.S. and went to school. Could you give my listeners a little bit of insight as to what happened once that was in play?
Yeah, my brother got accepted to a college in the U.S., and it was a Methodist university in like Spartanburg, South Carolina. And we had no idea what Methodist meant, so we were just excited that he got into an American college. And he came here, and he was in the first one in our family to go to college and then go to an American, like go to America. Not just an American college, but go to the States. So yeah, it was a big, big deal. And yeah, he came back, and every year he would come back for the summer, and he would just be very different. And one summer he came back, and he told me and my sisters that he was a born again Christian. That was the first time I heard that phrase. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you saying? And then he talked about that he was no longer Muslim, and he was going to tell mom and dad. And, again, like going back to that pride thing, growing up in Islam, I mean, we're like, what's going on? And why would you even do that? Why would you even consider that? And so, I mean, Islam in Muslim countries is your nationality in a sense. It's not a religion. So to convert is like you're a traitor to the people. So
it's like treason.
So
Wow.
that they have a special name for that in Islam. It's called a kafir, and kafirs don't even, they don't even get to heaven at all. Like people, like Christians will, eventually get to heaven based on Muslim teachings, but kafirs do not. They're the ones who, there's no hope for them.
Wow.
They're the traitors. Yeah, and that's why their Sharia law, which if you know anything about Islam, they're very harsh in terms of treatment of kafirs, where the parents or the government are allowed to actually stone, kill, imprison ex-Muslims.
So then I can only guess that his coming home and sharing this with you and your sisters was not exactly a high moment of celebration. This must have freaked you guys out.
Yeah, it did freak me out. It got me actually enraged more than anything else. I threatened to kill him. Yeah. And it scared him and me, but he decided not to tell mom and dad. So he didn't do that. And then he just kept it quiet and came back to the States. Yeah.
Wow. So how much longer then was it before you came over from that time that he made this announcement?
So I think this was late 80s. I would say, so I came here to the States in 1992 after the Gulf War, where Iraq invaded Kuwait, and Kuwait was occupied and then eventually liberated. The war lasted for about 9 months or so. Kuwait got occupied in 1990. And so my mom, and then not my mom, but all of us, we were all stuck there. We decided not to leave and go back to Pakistan when Iraq invaded Kuwait, partly because it was really sketchy for us to leave, and it would be a drive, and it was just going through several borders. It would require us to go through Iraq, and it was just the stories you heard were terrible. So we didn't leave. So he told me, and then the Iraq. So I want to say probably 89 is when he told me, and then 1990. That summer of 89 is probably when he told me, and then he didn't come back in 1990, but that August is when Iraq invaded Kuwait. Yeah.
So a young Naeem arrives stateside. I'm just curious what that initial that initial border crossing was like for you after the way that you grew up.
I mean, it was quite the shock, man. The shock of coming to the States. And what's funny though, the funny thing is, I will say this, that I actually flew from Kuwait and flew right into Miami. And I make a joke because the fact is, like, everybody looks like me in Miami. So I was confused. Initially, I was like, this is the wrong country, man. What are we doing? And then they're speaking a totally different language. They're like, what? Like, I had not heard of Spanish, which is ridiculous, but I had not heard of Spanish. So I'm like, is this the wrong country? Like, what are we doing? But I went to Miami for a week to stay with my cousin. And then I took a Greyhound bus to Charleston, South Carolina. But yeah, day one, man, my brother introduced me to his friends. They were all Christians, and they started inviting me to stuff. And I didn't have a call. I mean, I was just coming in. I had no idea of anything. So I just tagged along with him wherever he went. And so, yeah, he asked me to come to FCA, Fellowship for Christian Athletes, like a week into it. And I was not interested, but then he was like, hey, man, there's going to be girls there. You're going to meet people and this and that. And I was like, all right, sure. So that's when I first heard the gospel at an FCA, collegiate FCA Tuesday night event. Yeah.
Okay. My biggest curiosity there is, I mean, your world is really completely turned upside down. That it just seems like everything you knew has now just been thrown up in the air. You're in a completely different country. You essentially don't even recognize your brother for his new life, but now you're right there in the middle of it. What can you recall what you were thinking in those early days of what in the world is going on?
Yeah, and the early days were, so what happened, Steve, is that I came in, and from the get-go, there was so many different challenges. English is my second language. It's not my first. So I came here. I had studied British English, and when I came to the States, I had a thicker accent. I didn't know the vocabulary that people used. A lot of things were just new. I didn't understand people. In the South, oh my God, I couldn't understand anything they were saying. So I couldn't really relate. So there were like, even chit chat, even like small talk with people in college. I mean, just imagine, it's always already awkward, but now I'm trying to be like this guy that fits in. So there was not anxiety, because I'm not really an anxious kind of person. So it was definitely more exciting, but there was a lot of like hurdles, where like, okay, so socially I have to interact like that. These guys are Christians. So I'm like seeing this subculture going on. Also, I was on a tourist visa that would expire in a month. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I do here? So can I get into college? So there was just a lot of things going on. And then this, again, reinforcement from other people about this relationship with Jesus. And then 3 weeks into it, I had this radical experience.
While this interview has been very interesting and informative, I realized in the editing process that it would be unfair to you, the listener, as well as to Naeem, if I didn't include his unimaginable experience from the night he came to Christ. So, with thanks to Seacoast Church, this is a portion of the message that Naeem gave there in 2014.
So I show up, right? I show up, and I'm thinking my brother's going to be like, oh, Jesus this and Jesus that. He does not do it. And so he shows up, and he basically just invites me to FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And then he says, there are blonde women there. I'm like, sign me up, man. Let's do this. And so I start showing up to FCA in the back, watching people, hearing the messages. And I'm thinking that, like some of you guys are thinking here or there, you're thinking, this whole Jesus thing is absurd. I mean, come on, really. I mean, this idea that God is our Father, He sent His Son Jesus to have a personal relationship with us, that God is personal, intimate, and He wants to have a connection with us day to day, kind of seems narcissistic. I mean, come on, you were not that good, right? I mean, and so I just thought like the whole idea was ridiculous. In fact, I would mock people. I would have arguments with people, but Mahmoud didn't say anything. But one night we were walking downtown Charleston, and we got into an argument. And I said, the whole idea is just stupid, man. And I remember telling him, like, okay, so you're telling me that Jesus and God is so real that He'll come down if I just ask Him to reveal Himself, He'll do it. And I remember walking by this bush, and I said, so you're telling me that I can just tell God to come and burn this bush, and He'll do it. So I was mocking him. And you know what he did? He goes, you know what? If you ask Him to reveal Himself, He'll do it. And I was like, you're an idiot. That's what I thought. So the next time I'm at FCA, I'm in the back, and they're ending in prayer. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I want to do this. I want to do something. So what I do is I kind of I look up and I go, so, if this is even half true, like I want to know. I do. But it's not true, is it? I'm talking to myself, right? Okay, that's it. All right. That was it. That was my prayer. Now, 3 days later, though, everything changed. Okay, this is where the story gets freaky. Okay, can you say freaky? Oh, good. You're doing it. Good job. Okay. It really does. So 3 nights later, I'm in my room trying to fall asleep. I'm about to shut off the lamp light, and all of a sudden, I feel like something has entered the room. Can't explain it. It felt like death, evil, dread entered the room. My body begins to react to something I cannot physically see. And I'm freaking out, but I don't understand why. I'm confused, as well as I'm fearful. As I look around, feel like things are moving, but I can't really see them. As I'm trying to understand what's happening, something grabs my shoulders, drags me, and pins me to my pillow. I flip out. I'm trying to get up. Something sits on my legs. Now I'm paralyzed, and the only thing I can move is my neck. And so I go back and forth. I'm going, what's going on? And then I do what any person would do. I cuss in every language I know. And so now I'm like screaming bloody murder. I'm hoping my brother would hear me, but the door opens up and in walks this. I told you it's freaky, right? So in walks this demon thing. Okay, now I'm a Muslim. Like, I'm not even into demons or vampires or werewolves. I'm just not into that. And so this thing walks in. I'm thinking, wrong room, bro. Like, I'm not into this. And so this thing walks up. I don't even know what's going on. And this thing communicates with me and says, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, I think so. Like, I mean, yeah. And so as it's walking closer, I'm thinking, this is, I've ticked off some God, obviously, up there. And then first reaction was, hey, I ticked off Allah because I went to FCA. Darn those blonde women. I'm like, oh. And so then I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe it's not Allah. Maybe it's Jesus. He looks nothing like the pictures. Then I'm thinking, maybe it's something else. So as I'm thinking this, I'm freaking out because it's getting closer and closer. So at that point, I am praying to anybody up there. Allah, Buddha, Oprah, I don't care. Okay? And so this thing gets closer and closer, reaches my bed, and I'm thinking, okay, see you later, world. And it disappears. What was holding me, lets go. And now I'm stunned, not paralyzed, just lying in my bed going, what the blank happened? And I run out of the room, wake up my brother, and I go, what did you do? What is going on? And he was like, are you asleep? And I go, I don't think so. And so I tell him the story, and he confirms that there are demons. I didn't know that. I was like, what? See, I'd never read the Bible, so I just thought that the Bible was basically like the Quran, just stuff you're not supposed to do, but it's fun. Like that's it. And here he tells me about Jesus interacting with demons and like, oh yeah, it's true. And I'm like, what? And I go, okay, so what do we do? And he goes, okay, well, he starts telling me about salvation and the gospel and the things I've heard before. And he tells me great analogies and all that. As he's going through it, I'm like feeling this dread of like, I'm going to die somehow. And I just say, you know what? Just stop, bro. I need something bigger. I need like someone to help me fight off this big, ugly thing. Okay. So I need some serious help. And he says this, I'll never forget it. He says, the only person I know who has authority over demons and angels is Jesus. And I go, all right, well then let's do this. Let's just make the connection. Let's do whatever we have to do. Add him on Facebook. I don't know. Like, let's do it. And so we pray together, and he prays for me, and I pray. And my prayer is this. I mean, again, I was a Muslim like 2 minutes ago. So I'm thinking, and I've never prayed really out loud in my own language. In Islam, you pray in Arabic on a mat. And so I just look up and I go, you know what, Jesus, I don't know who you are, so I can't say I love you. I can't say you're the Lord of my life because I don't know who you are. But if you will help me with this, I'll give you my whole life. And so that was my sincere prayer. And then my brother prayed for me. It was beautiful. It was great. And I'm like, okay, amen. Like, now what? Because I'm still scared to death. And so, I kid you not, you can ask him. He gives me the world's smallest Bible. It's a Gideon Bible. I didn't know what Gideon meant, but it's a green Bible. It's about this big. You guys know what I'm talking about. He's like, read John, I'll see you in the morning. And I'm thinking, move over, I'm spooning you. Like, no, I'm not going back in the room. Not happening. I'm not going back in the room. And he goes, no, you got to go back in the room. I'm like, no, I don't. And he's like, no, you just prayed to Jesus. You got to go back in the room. I'm like, I just met the dude. I don't even know his last name. You go back in the room. I'll stay here. And so he goes back and forth, who's going back in the room? And finally I'm like, okay, I'll go back in the room. So I go back in the room, hiding behind the Bible. And I sit there and I'm freaking out because everything's making sounds. And I'm reading John and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm a Muslim, man. I don't want any part of this. You know what? What's going on? I just want God to leave me alone. Like, really, I just went through a war and now I'm attacked by invisible dudes. I mean, can I have some real issues? Like, people are going to think I'm crazy. What's going on? And so my frustration turns to anger. I put the Bible down. I go shut off the lights, come back to my bed, and I sit on my bed, look up, and I say, Jesus, if I die tonight, it is your fault. That's all. My prayer life has gotten better, just so you guys know. But I didn't know what else to do. So I pray that or say that, and then I put the covers over my head, and I'm hoping nothing else happens. But I'm thinking if something does happen, I'm just not going to open my eyes because I can control my eyes, and I don't want to see anything nasty. And so I'm lying there, and then a couple minutes later, something is beginning to shake me. And I'm like, oh no, round 2. And I'm hoping it's my brother. He wants to snuggle, but I don't think that's him. And I'm being shaken, and I'm like, okay, whatever happens, don't open your eyes. Don't open your eyes. Don't open your eyes. And the next second, I find myself sitting on my bed with my eyes open, staring into him. And he is intoxicating. Like, I have never felt the peace of God so aggressive. It felt like I was looking at him, but I was somehow inside of him. And he said, I am Jesus, and your life is not your own. And I remember just staring and into him and at him and thinking, I can't keep my eyes off of you, but I cannot keep my eyes open. It felt like I, in this state, was not meant to be in his presence. My body couldn't take it. And he just put me to sleep. The next morning, I wake up and I got this spiritual download. And I think I went to my brother and I was like, hey, so I'm supposed to be in ministry. I don't know what that means. And that moment has shaped my life, but not just mine, not just his, but my sisters and my younger sister and my other brother. And God has pursued my whole family, and now we're all followers of Jesus. Mom and dad are not yet. But it is amazing to me what God will do and how God will pursue us. It doesn't matter where you were born. It doesn't matter where you came from. His love will not quit on you, and he will pursue you. If you're here this morning, the reason why you're here, the real reason why you're here is that there's something inside of you that's drawn to him, and your brain doesn't have language to communicate or process this, but your heart responds. And that's why you're here listening to this. And you need to be reminded that there's a God out there who pursues you with his love, because he knows that the only thing that can take you out of the person you are or you were and into the person you were created to be is his pursuing love for you.
Not only am I like eating new foods and meeting new people and interacting with even people that don't look like me, don't talk like me, don't think like me. I don't know their world. I'm in their world. There was just so many new things. So every day was a new thing. And now you throw in this supernatural things. It was over the top, and then trying to get into college and then realizing in the middle of that I had actually committed a crime based on Sharia law. And so I could file for religious asylum, and which was, I'm like, but I don't need, why would I want to do that? I could do that. But anyway, so yeah, then I filed for religious asylum and eventually got it. It was overwhelming in terms of like the amount of things that I had to learn and relearn.
Sure. Well, and I recall something that you said. I remember watching Seacoast's live stream when you spoke there, right when your book first came out. And you talked about, you received Christ, you had that amazing encounter that night, and the strangeness of all of that, and even just discussing it with your brother and him giving you that Bible, telling you to read the book of John. At what point did you even realize what had happened for you? I realize that's kind of a banger of a question, but you talked about how you accepted Christ. There was so much fear going on in you that evening. When was it that the light bulb started to really go on for you of, okay, wow, this is what faith in Christ means? And obviously for you, it had some much bigger ramifications because of what that would mean for your family ties, what that would mean for the Sharia law, like you just mentioned. What was that time frame like?
That's a good question. I think I'm still waking up to what it looks like to be in a relationship with Christ. So I think that, I have been a follower of Jesus now for 26 years, maybe more, 28. And I'm still waking up to like, okay, did this, I know it sounds ridiculous, but did this really happen? It did happen, right? It obviously happened. And I'm like, what is, like, there's so many things, so many different ways my life could have gone. So I'm still waking up to that, trying to figure out, because I think at first what happens is that, where I got jarred into this, an experience, I guess, to be introduced to the supernatural. Okay. But then out of that, we go, okay. So this relationship with God is very, very real, very intimate. God is no longer this person that wants you to do these 5 things and they want you to pray in a particular direction, in a particular language, in a particular way, in a particular time. Okay, so now we're moving into this creator God who, was sent a part of himself, who is his son. Like, it was so different trying to navigate all of those out. And then you get to a stage where you got to go, okay, I got to believe certain things. But then you actually go, okay, well, these things are good to believe, but the Holy Spirit is actually shaping me to become certain kind of person. So there's a continual revelation of growing into it. You get a law that says, okay, like for example, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul, your mind, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. So the golden rule seems to be love your neighbor as yourself. So that's how they believe and they live their life and this and that. And then Jesus comes and goes, okay, but I'm going to give you a new commandment. I want you to not love your neighbor as yourself. I want you to love your neighbor as I have loved you. Well, okay. Well, that's why that's called the new commandment. So now I don't treat people the way I want to be treated. I treat people how God treats me. So that's an evolution of growth where I find myself going, okay, so yeah, this whole thing did happen. I'm still growing in this. There's so much more to learn. There's so much more to know.
Well, and that's the thing is that when you realize just how multi-layered the thing is and continued to be, I knew that a conversation like this, we would just be scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Because, we get the amazing advantage of looking back at something like this through the lens of history. So it's kind of, maybe it's easy to hit the high points, but to distill it down into the finer points I'll take what I can get. How thankful were you for your brother's boldness to share what he experienced with you? You know, you can speak to that from the now, you know, is what kind of gratitude even comes into play?
Yeah. I mean, I cannot believe, like, I think, yeah, number one, in terms of gratitude, I mean, it's forever, um, a legacy that he's leaving, not just with me, but even with my kids.
Mm,
So for generations, he has, he was instrumental in moving us from a Muslim family to now all my siblings are Christian families. So that was huge. I don't think he knew what he was doing either,
yeah.
obviously. I think he was just being faithful to, um, telling his family about Jesus. And so he did. With me, I'm so grateful because I honestly, man, I don't think I would have come to Christ if it wasn't for demons attacking me, honestly.
Mm,
Because I'm not really, like, my brother came to Christ because um, he needed to know, he needed to make sense of some things
yeah.
spiritually. Then there are people who are like that, and then there are people like me who are like, I don't need to know, I don't even care.
Mm,
And that was kind of my thing. I'm like, I'm good. God, there is God. Who is he? Who is she? I don't even, it's all good, yo. I and my best friends were Hindus. Um, so, I was like, I'm whatever. So I don't think I would have been like on a quest to
mm,
know, if that makes sense. I wasn't really looking for forgiveness, just being honest. I wasn't ashamed of anything.
mm,
So, the way I came to Christ is very different from people. I didn't come broken. I didn't come like, oh, desperate. I He wasn't even an option,
mm.
you know.
Well, that's what's so interesting to me, that even in your brother's naivete, he completely changed the paradigm for your entire family. And like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, now it's your kids, it's his kids. I don't know if any of your other siblings have kids, but
Yeah,
let's say
yeah, so
all of a
yeah,
sudden, like you said, the legacy now lives on completely
yeah,
different. And Naeem, the brother, is pastoring a church in Charlotte, North Carolina. I mean, if
right.
you could reverse your life 30 years and somebody told you that that's what your future would hold, how would that have
Yeah.
even sounded to you? Would it have made any sense to you at all?
No, not at all. I mean, I was going to be an art major. I was going to be in the arts world in some way. That's what I was thinking.
Hmm.
Yeah, this was not even. I mean, I spent no time thinking about this until I met Christ, and then because the thing is that when I met him, what I heard was not like "I love you, you're forgiven." I heard "Your life is not your own,"
Hmm.
and I was like, "Oh." And so that first night, I got a kind of a download, not download, but I kind of got a hint of your life's not your own. You're gonna be in ministry. That's what you gotta now align everything to. So, and I did. I went big. I went pretty hard after that. I went pretty hard. I mean, I told my brother that morning. I was like, I'm supposed to do this, and then, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to change my major to kind of a. I'm going to find out everything there is to know about the Bible. I didn't never read the Bible, so
Hmm.
spent 3 years of my life right after that. I did not date on purpose. I did not do anything, man. I tried to figure out school, work, and then Bible, and then church, and all that, and eventually found Seacoast.
What is your hope for the future? And I know that's like a Miss America
Yeah,
question, but I
yeah.
mean, just knowing where you've come from, knowing what you've come from, and for whatever time you've got left, what's at the core of you and keeping you motivated?
Mhm. Well, I mean, in what I do right now, I lead a church, and you know, uh, get a chance to like speak into people's lives. And my hope is that my hope is to shape the future of Christianity. Like the big idea is like, I mean, like God didn't, Jesus's teachings was not to make us good Christians. It was Jesus' teachings were to make us a great church. And so we have always thought the scriptures are always personal and individual, but they never are, have never been. And we can obviously take them and apply them, but they're always spoke to a collective. And it's a group of people moving together through history. And that's what God was trying to do. So all the scriptures are always to people, a group, a collective. And so there's power in that. So I think like my hope is that churches would understand that we are trying to build the church, which is people, and that we would be brave enough to really keep the gospel very pure in terms of what God has done, to not put God in a box. So I think if we have a humble theology, we'll be pursuing. That's my hope, that the church would continue to move towards being the church. Man, thanks for what you're doing. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me share my story, man.
Even with all that we covered here, this is just a portion of Naeem's story. If you'd like to hear more, I highly recommend getting his book, Ex-Muslim. And I love the tagline on it, How One Daring Prayer to Jesus Changed a Life Forever. I've got a link to that in the show notes, along with links to the Nook Facebook page and my social media feeds if you'd like to follow along. If you have any questions or comments about any of my episodes, drop me an email. The address is steven@nookpodcast.com. That's Steven with a V at nookpodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you here next time in the Nook. The Nook Podcast is a production of Sozo Digital Media.